Uh, hey guys, really good to be here today. I've got Gregg Aamoth, and if I mispronounce that name, Greg, please correct me.
You nailed it,
He's
Gary.
awesome. He is a co-founder of POPcodes, a business that's been in operation for some years that I'm quite interested in. He's on the edge of the payment industry. He's a co-founder. He's going to tell us his journey. Again, this is an entrepreneurial show. We're trying to help young people, middle-aged people, and maybe people that are stuck in a big corporate and they're unhappy. Hey, how do they, leverage their education, their experience over their lifetime, maybe even some of the tools and lessons their parents gave them when they were younger. But what's important in business today, what your business is doing, how it's leveraging technology, Greg, and some of the opportunities you see. So we're just going to have a little journey through Gregg's life, and I would really encourage you guys to take notes. We're going to talk about hopefully, and I don't know Gregg that well. He came through a really good friend of mine who used to work for me and thought this would be a good connection for both Gregg and I. So I said, hey, let's just do an interview as if we're getting to know each other for the first time. There shouldn't be anything top secret about having a meeting with somebody. Like, this is really good. Like, we had a very, very brief chat on the phone, but this is Gregg and I as adults, business people, getting to know each other. And these are exactly the kind of questions I would ask him if I was going to partner with him, or if I was going to buy a license from him to help, my business, or just, in fact, just be a friend. So with that, Gregg, I'd love to hear your background, where you grew up. We got some time here. This is going to be an hour. Just tell us about your life and how you ended up right here.
Yeah, awesome, Gary. Thanks, and I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you. You've certainly been, you and your brother have been major success in your entrepreneur efforts, and I know you've been in the payment side for quite some time. I've always been kind of I'd say intrapreneur and entrepreneur. Either part of a very large organization like Domino's Pizza, Borders Books and Music, and before I started this company, Macy's, and trying to drive innovation and change in those large organizations. And then I've had a couple stints, both individually and as other parts of other groups of being a real entrepreneur. And I'm thrilled, to be a co-founder with POPcodes and launch this solution as the CEO. I was the CIO of a company called Bluegill Technologies that was in the payment space, more on the electronic bill payment space, that got acquired by CheckFree, which is now Fiserv in the payments world. And certainly at Macy's, we leverage the payments data to build the understanding of the customer that I helped enable across the Macy's and Bloomingdale's brand. But I think your point about the roots of where I grew up, my parents owned a small town newspaper, and their goal was to help the local businesses really keep up, compete, and thrive in that highly competitive market in Michigan. And so my love of the mom and pop business owner and helping bring some of the more advanced omni-channel capabilities and more payment capabilities that the big guys benefit from today to that smaller and obviously much more large in terms of number of players to that other market. And that's really what we're doing with POPcodes.
So we're going to get into POPcodes, but we're going to talk about your journey, because at my old age now, I say that my old age, actually, for the first time in my life, I'm actually very comfortable in the knowledge I have, right? I wouldn't say I'm rigid or unshakable, but I have a pretty strong foundation on what I believe in. And one of those things is, it doesn't matter how good the technology is. What really matters is the teams, their ability to execute, their ability to lead. I was on a program the other night. About 800 people were in the room, and I don't know how we got there, but someone asked a lady, that was co-hosting with me, how she would identify herself. And she's like, I don't know, how would you identify me? She said, "You're a leader." And I was like, wow, what an awesome compliment. I have literally never heard anyone characterized as a leader. And the greatest army in the world, the greatest business in the world, if it doesn't have a parent, an alpha dog, whatever you want to call it, to lead the troops.
Yeah.
That all comes from, I think, background, and not school background, but educational background from your parents.
Yeah.
So you grew up where? Did you grow up in Michigan?
Yeah, spent most of my time in Michigan. I moved a bit before we landed in Michigan, but yeah, I grew up in Michigan, went to school in Michigan, moved to
What'd you study?
Atlanta in the 2000s, but yeah.
What did you study?
It was the early business information systems degree called operational information systems. I actually went to the school and helped craft a program that was a combination of computer science and business for a double major.
Oh, wow.
Again, in the late 80s, my student counselor was saying, you want to become a programmer? And I'm like, no, I want to solve business problems with computers. And that didn't exist, in terms of a degree then. So kind of crafted my own thing.
So your parents were running their own family-run business, just like mine. My dad and mom ran a grocery store. Me and Grant remember going to the grocery store and seeing the inventory, and like for me, it was really like pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did you always want to be an entrepreneur when you're in high school? Like when you're in high school, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, my first job was at a pizza parlor, working the counter, working behind the scenes. In addition to, literally, from the time I could walk, helping my parents, I helped them, just get the paper out the door. But, one of the first big projects I did was help to computerize their production processes. Dramatically, accelerating the time for them to, because that was when, the software to do page layouts and that kind of stuff was just being created in the Mac world.
What
So
year are we in? We're in
What's that?
We're in the mid 90s.
Yeah, the early 90s, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I graduated high school in '84, graduated college in '89, and have been in, corporate or startup ever since.
So when you left college, when you went into college, did you know what you were going to do? A lot of the people that follow this, they're entrepreneurs, and I think people think that everyone has a programmed career track. If y'all do, I want to hear about it, because mine was pretty erratic. What did that look like when you were moving from high school, making the decision to go into college or not? And did you know what the heck you were doing?
Yeah, I had a little bit of an idea. Like I said, I told my high school counselors I wanted to solve problems with computers. Not, I didn't want to be a programmer. I didn't necessarily want to, be business person exclusively. I thought technology had brought some really, interesting advantages and opportunities. And I started actually consulting during college independently, helping local newspapers, print shops, and other companies, bring technology in, like I did with my parents. So I always knew that there was that entrepreneur aspect there. I did go into the corporate world, at Domino's headquarters there in Ann Arbor as my first corporate job. But even within that, I saw that, as a young person, if I could, put together a user group, if I could engage the community, if I could do other things, above my outside of my day-to-day job, that built better relationships inside and outside the organization that I've leveraged throughout my whole career.
Yeah, I've always thought that consulting was a great way to learn a business. I think that's a really good tip. You're high school, you're going into college. I mean, what stops you from going in and doing some research work for a company, and then you learn about that company? I've actually called it the Trojan horse and you look at McKinsey and you're like, these guys leave McKinsey and they can't do their own business. It's like, wow, you had all that inside baseball and you couldn't turn that into a business. I find that really amazing. But I've always wanted to do the consulting kind of and then plug it into a technology. The problem is it doesn't get a good multiple. So, but you learn an awful lot, right? That's
Yeah,
the
you can
problem,
make lots of revenue, in the short term. It paid for my college bills for sure. And there's nothing more humbling than knocking on a business's door and, starting with the receptionist and explaining, how you might be able to help them and, asking questions and getting that relationship started, from nothing. And that's, that's a big thrill when you can, obviously you get lots of no's, get the heck out of here when you're 20 years old trying to talk about computers, when early on, but when you get that, hey, yeah, could you help us with this, and then you can, that's a pretty big win.
Yeah, for sure. So you left college, you had some clarity on what you wanted to do. You went to Domino's. Was that the big platform in Michigan that, hey, you leave college, you go work for Domino's?
It was, go ahead.
And that kind of is your educational layer, like moving from the military to, okay, you're going into your own private army. That's probably not a great analogy, but you get some basics, right?
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely one of the fastest growing and most innovative companies in the area. The founder, Tom Monahan, was, started with, one store in Ann Arbor. And I think by the time I joined, it was maybe 300 or 400 stores. And his vision was worldwide domination, even back then. So I was there from like 500 stores to 5,000 stores in like 4 years, right? So
wow.
It was a massive indoctrination from a growth standpoint and moving fast and making quick decisions and make it, doing it, taking action, right? It was definitely not a slow moving company by any means. So that kind of really helped, me set the pace of how I think business should be run.
Yeah, I like to maybe study that area just a little bit. You brought up something pretty early on in the conversation. I was like, wow, we're going to start this conversation this way. But you talked about, kind of quasi entrepreneur, like in the Macy's and then the Domino's, and then, hey, you said something, now I'm really doing real entrepreneurial stuff. I've never heard anyone say it like that. I can tell you that my counterparts at Macy's, when I was trying to sell them anything or any big company, ExxonMobil, it felt like I was not really very appreciated. Like I was an alien, and that, like, hey, can you please, other than me buying the lunch, I always felt like there was some, not with everybody, but some animosity between me, because I've always worked for people. I think I still work for people. I mean, I own businesses, but like I work for the founders, really. Like if they go on tilt, then what good is my investment? Tell me a little bit about that dynamic. Hey, kind of entrepreneur to, oh wow, I have nothing to fall back on. Is that kind of where you're headed?
Yeah, and you're totally right. I mean, there's a lot of people in organizations that, they want to follow the chain of command all the time. They don't want to, risk bringing up new ideas. They don't want to risk challenging the norm. And that just wasn't me. I mean, I was always ready to ask the questions in the room, shake hands with the CEOs, get to know the people that were, all around the organization and try to learn, ways that I could help. Sometimes that was viewed, very positively and accepted well. And sometimes it was like, get the heck out, we don't need, your input or feedback. At Macy's, I started as an organization that was the first one that was cross brand. So it was Macy's, Bloomingdale's, and the credit division, just to build the single view of the customer. And when I started, there was 40 different silos across all the different brands. And I can tell you there were a lot of those silos that did not want me to get into their world, and didn't like the news that I was sharing with them about how poor their environment, their data was. I had to tell people that, you thought you were marketing to, these people, 30% of your database is garbage. You're just throwing away, 30% of your spend, because I can prove that this isn't actually reaching your target audience. And they did not like that, obviously.
I can imagine that went over really well, right? You were the most favorite player there.
Yeah, I would walk into a conference room with, the head of the divisions, and I would say, okay, here's what I have to tell you. You have wasted $200 million this year on, trying to market to people that aren't your customer, right? And so, eventually, as we built up that solid view and could prove and measure the marketing, the central organization took over. We ended up owning, after 5-6 years, the whole marketing strategy for all of the brands, and then drove the brand consolidation from there. And so, it took some time, and it was definitely painful. But as an entrepreneur, I knew that it was going to be a little bit painful personally. I knew that there was going to be a lot of travel involved. There was going to be a lot of, difficult meetings involved. And I was okay with that, where I think a lot of people in the organization just didn't want to take those risks.
Yeah. Well, if you're like me, I just can't hold my tongue back. If I get hired, when I was at Dynegy, I remember Chuck was the president. We started 12 people, and then we went to 6,000 Fortune 30 company. We didn't even use the word unicorn. It was so long ago. Unicorns were, fairy tales. And, but I remember when I was in London, they used to invite me to the board meetings every quarter. I'm like, it's a long trip. I don't really want to go. I argue with you guys every time I go there, and you're hiring a bunch of MBAs. Like, I'm just off 8,000 miles away. Let me build these businesses, and you're not going to listen to. And they would literally say, no. We want you to come in. We like the friction. We don't have enough people telling us the truth. And what I call the ass wipe, October, November, December, the bonus period when everybody is comfortable getting the old brown nose. I'm like, oh, I hate this. I just abhorred the politics. And I could never be quiet, because I'm like, hey, you're getting ready to make $1 billion mistake here. Okay, this is not a funny mistake. You're just doing what everyone else is doing, and that's not being a leader. Okay.
Yeah, I vividly recall a conversation at Check Free with, you may know the guys there, so I won't say names, but where they were going to evaluate whether to buy PayPal. And this was in 2002, maybe 2003.
Yeah.
And it was like going to be $150 million or something like that. And they just bought my company for the company that I was in, the CIO, for $250 million. And they were like, I don't know, who's going to, these online auctions and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm telling you, consumers being able to have, direct payments and be able to, this is going to be a big deal. We really should look at this. And I was in that boardroom, and nobody else wanted to do it. Nobody else wanted to hear it. And I mean, look at it now, right?
Well, they might have messed it up. And
true.
Look at it now. I think they have issues. I think PayPal missed a big window. There's an example of where timing really, really, really was very, very vital.
Yeah.
And now they're going to compete with X, and I wouldn't want to do that personally.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a tough market regardless, but that decision at that time could have totally changed the dynamics of the organization for sure.
So let's level set the audience, and then we're going to kind of move into what you do, and like how you found this. But guys, let's think about this guy. Okay, he started with a family-run business. That was his imprint, his image. He then goes to college, knows he wants to do something with computers, knows he's a thoughtful leader type, goes to work for a big platform called Domino's, right? And he was then able to see scale. See, this is the thing that I think most people don't understand. Hey, I want to be an owner, founder, CEO. I'm 23 and I've never done anything in my entire life except be on a soccer team. And it's like, okay, do you know anything about scaling? Like I built a $500 million business where Andy came from with my wife, and she used to complain about scaling. And I'd go to all my bank buddies in London and they're like, oh, Gary, poor Gary, scaling is a challenge. You know, they'd make fun of me. I'm like, exactly. Scaling is a problem for MasterCard, right? So why don't you talk about what you learned on that platform? Because I'm a big believer. A lot of people watch my brother and what they hear is you have to run your own business. You have to own your own business and you have to be diversified. Look, you ain't running shit when you're 21 years old and you're definitely not diversified, right? Like
Right.
you only have one source of income. Diversification comes a long time later. I don't know anybody that got rich diversified. I know a lot of rich guys like you that built a business, took a bunch of risks, got off the 401k and the political meetings. But talk about what you learned on like a domino scaling like they did in the 90s.
I think the big takeaway was, just do it, right? Just keep going. Don't wait till everything's perfect, because it's never going to be perfect. Get started, keep going, keep moving, deal with the things that come up as quickly and effectively as you can. Build a good team of leaderships around you, and just keep pushing. And I think that was the biggest thing. We would open up a new country and then realize they like fish on their pizza, and then we'd be having to figure out how to deliver fish to their market, right? And so there's a lot of things like that I learned just in that rapid growth stage. When I went to Bluegill, there was like 5 of us when we started, and 3 years later there was 500 of us, and we opened a new business. We created a new building. We onboarded tons of merchants, and we definitely didn't have everything perfect the first time. We just kept working harder to improve it.
Yeah, it's never perfect. It's you're never done, right? That's why I spend more time on due diligence on the people than I do the technology, because I always say the technology that you have today, unless it's being built for tomorrow and constantly being updated and upgraded, and you're really close to the market and responding to what the market really wants. And that does not mean an individual customer. It means the collection of customers.
Right.
Those are the guys that really know. This is like the Macy's all you do is look at Macy's can't possibly understand the problem. Now, if they go work at Nordstrom's and then they go work at other places, Amazon, they get 5 templates. Oh, these companies all have the same issue. What did you learn not to do on scaling when you were in the 3 and you went to 500 in that company? And what mistakes did you make that the audience can learn from and not repeat?
I think in hindsight, probably, and especially given the way people work today, we built a big building. We put a lot of infrastructure in play. We spent tens of thousands of dollars on phone systems and tens of thousands of dollars on server rooms and all that kind of stuff. And I think that fixed asset is something that if you can minimize your cost and risk there, that's a big thing. It's much more easy to do today with video conferencing and mobile work from home and all that kind of stuff. You can build a very strong team, and generally keep the connectivity that you need with everybody kind of working remote. That said, you can see I'm in office. I love to have people in front of me at least a couple times a week. So that's kind of where you balance that out. But I'd say that making sure that you're really measuring and planning at that capital expense is one of the key objectives, I think.
Yeah, well, when you're a startup, you don't have the luxury of having a bunch of cash. Well, I guess you did in 2021 and 22 when everybody was throwing money at an idea. But back when you and I were growing up, there wasn't broadband, there wasn't fiber, you didn't have AI. I mean, quite frankly, I think the one of the reasons I'm doing this, somebody asked me, hey, why are you interviewing people? Like, well, one, it's an awesome way for me to get to know people not inside my little circle. And so it broadens the circle, but also I think we're seeing a change in the economy and society when we're able to do something like this and it costs us $20 in an hour of our time.
Yeah.
That is really magnificent change. Add AI on top of that. I can't remember a better time to start businesses.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's so much power in everybody's hands, and what we're leveraging is, the power that's on the on the merchant's counter today. It's basically a smartphone with a printer and another layer of security on it. But it's an extremely powerful device, and we can leverage that to do things that the payment industry just hadn't thought possible for decades.
Yeah,
and
well,
get a level of communication there.
Yeah, let's switch to that. And guys, just notice this gentleman's path, right? He left college, went to work at Domino's. What you're laughing, but I think it's really important, right? You did a startup, it went from 3 to 500, then you went and moved to Macy's. You had an event, I take it, before Macy's. You went back into Macy's. How long did you stay there? And then let's move to POPcodes and how you got here.
Yeah. So the startup that was at 500 got bought right at the year 2000, and as CIO, I was responsible for all the transition. So the bulk of my shares were locked, and I couldn't do anything while I watched it go from $130 a share down to 13.
Oh no!
So that was brutal. I paid more in alternative minimum tax than I got, once I was released from my share restrictions. So. That kind of soured me a bit to that. Obviously, Macy's, was in the area. They approached me. I stayed there for about 10 years. Again, as in the big organization with the big vision that we had, they hired me on as a consultant to start with to help them renegotiate a contract. That contract was for data management and marketing automation services. And I saw, holy cow, the potential if it was done right, and if it was done with a single view of the customer, and if it was done consistently across all of the brands, the chance to move the needle was massive, right? So it did take quite a bit of time to get that in place. But then, after I got that in place, that itch of being able to, remove a lot of the politics, move faster, do more, and the exposure that I had at the time, I was just starting to date a Canadian, and got some exposure to the future of what payments look like with smart devices on the counter, which happened in outside of the U.S. much more quickly than it did in the U.S. And those ideas started popping again, and that entrepreneur aspect really started growing. So I think I lost track of your specific question, but
oh, that's okay. So what Gregg's
so
what Gregg's talking about is the handheld devices that Europe really pushed through. Like, if you've not been to Europe, only less than half the people in America have passports, Gregg. So I have to remember this when I'm communicating to them. When I went to England, only 17% of people had passports in the US, but everyone in Europe has a passport. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, you're in prison if you don't have a passport. You're not going to go to that next country. But all of their devices are handheld. I haven't seen a register, the big what's called point of sale device. Is it amazing to you that Canada had handheld devices and we were what, 20? We're still not on handheld devices, right? People are still taking my credit card to the back room, right? And then you wonder why there's so much fraud in payments.
Yeah, exactly. You never let go of your card in Canada, Europe, ever, right? I mean, I'm always tapping my phone or tapping my card on a device that's right in front of me, and I think that's progressively coming to the U.S. with COVID and the desire not to touch other people's things. That really kind of accelerated it. But U.S. has got some, and it's not just the U.S. There's this leapfrog scenario, right? If you're the early adopter of something, and U.S. was the ones that brought the credit card processing, to the table, it's harder to be the innovator and replace all that infrastructure, right? And so I think that's kind of the cycle that the U.S. was in. Now we're getting ready to leapfrog again, and I think again we'll bring new capabilities to merchants and service providers that don't even exist in the rest of the world. right? And so I think there's that cyclical opportunity. But yeah, the smart payment device is like a smartphone. It's going to be something that's going to be used a lot more than just credit and debit acceptance in the years ahead.
So what is POPcodes, and what gap is it filling between maybe the old way a merchant, because your primary client is the merchant, either a restaurant, grocery store, bar, right?
Yeah.
Casino.
Yeah. So right now our primary client is the payment processor themselves. In the payment industry, they're called like a merchant acquirer or an ISO that sells those processing services, and we help them connect to the merchant through that smart device. So that smart device becomes a communication channel. It's always on. It's always on their counter, and it helps them get their staff trained more quickly. It helps them understand when they've got a chargeback, like what your company did, and not the tracking of it, but the driving awareness to it, and helping that communication from major service provider down to their large portfolio of SMB merchants.
Right. So because half of the audience is heavy crypto people,
Yeah.
let's just step back because we got half an hour. So let's step back. So Gary Cardone, restaurant and bar.
Yep.
I call up, and you can correct me when I make a mistake here. I call up JP Morgan and go, hey, I do $10,000 a week. I want you to provide processing, and they're going to hang the phone up on me, right?
Yeah.
So walk me through, how does Gary Cardone, the restaurateur, the bartender, or whatever, how do I get the right to accept a credit card from a consumer from you? I want you to explain the chains, because I keep saying that there's too many people in the value chain.
Yeah.
Or the non-value chain. It's actually a non-value chain. It's just a stopping point for you to throw off 2% to this guy providing a report.
Yeah.
You're saying you don't, the merchant doesn't really get the processing direct with the bank. It's a intermediary with the bank.
Right. It is a big value chain. And when you think about it as a merchant, it's all the way from your supplier, the people and the brands that give you the products and services to sell, to the payment processors and the banks that help you convert that interaction on a piece of plastic to dollars in your bank. You have to prove that you're a viable business, and there's all kinds of anti-money laundering rules and regulations. You have to have somebody that's going to give you the equipment to be able to accept payments, and again, that's almost always now going to be a smart terminal or a smart point of sale system. You have to get your environment set up, and then anytime a consumer comes in the store, which is about 70% of the time now, and uses a credit or a debit card, you've got to have that transaction process. And there's a lot of behind the scenes that goes into converting a tap on a payment terminal to dollars into your bank. There's as you mentioned, transaction fees associated with that, but there's communications that happen in the back end from your device to a payment gateway to an authorizing bank, back to your device, back to your point of sale system, back to your bank. Transferring the funds around is quite a complicated process, and we help drive awareness to those merchants that here's how you do a credit card transaction. Yes, you can accept a Google Wallet payment. Yes, you can accept an Apple payment. Here's how it'll work. Here's how a chargeback would work. Here's how a return would work. All those basic things, and then we help drive awareness to all the value adds. So gift card programs and loyalty programs and cash discount and cash advance, or crypto, or anything else that service provider might offer that merchant. We help drive awareness and help enable those other options to make that whole payment experience better.
And so who's your client? Is it the restaurateur? And then who's the user?
In the end, the user is definitely the restaurateur. It's the store manager, what we call the key holding associate, that opens the door every morning and sees the messages that we deliver on that terminal. The merchant is definitely at the center of everything that we do. We try to make it really quick and easy for the merchant, but we're really helping the payment processor, deliver their message, get their equipment set up more quickly, get their cost done. And that's our focus today. And you mentioned Trojan horse. The reason we focus on that today is there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of merchants out there, and a few thousand, big service providers that provide the payment processing service to those, in North America, like 30,000 merchants. They can't service that SMB merchant very well at all. The merchant has to wait on hold. Go ahead.
SMB means
small and medium business, right? The vast majority of businesses, everybody sees the big boxes and they have tons of transaction volume. But in terms of
big boxes being the Macy's of the world, Nordstrom's,
the Macy's of the world are, they're the big guys, right? And there's like 20,000 of those, like, globally. There's 20 million small medium businesses in North America alone that need the same payment processing services. They don't have anywhere near the resources to be like of a Macy's or of a Walmart to be able to manage that. They have nowhere near the skill and understanding of the technology behind it. They need something that's really quick, really easy, and cost effective. And then they want to leverage it for much more. And that's kind of the longer side of our solution. Once we can communicate to the merchant and help that payment processor reach that merchant and service the merchant better, the next step is helping the merchant communicate better to the customer and helping other people in the value chain communicate better to the customer. And that's really where we're going, from a long-term strategy perspective. We're laying the foundation right now. About 3,000 or 4,000 merchants a month are getting our solution. Those merchants, 2 years from now, will be able to use our platform to enable loyalty, enroll new loyalty members for their own loyalty program, to help their customers use loyalty points, right in store, to help their customers redeem promotions. You can go online to almost any website and you can enter a promo code online, but you can't enter a promo code in store. Why not, right? I mean, that's the whole definition of omni-channel, right? It's supposed to be seamless across all of them.
You should be able to walk in with something into the restaurant or into the retail trade. You see $300 on a pair of jeans. You should be able to use your QR code and go, boom, I got a 20% discount, and I don't have to sit here for a day and file an application, right?
Exactly. I have to, prove that I got this promotion to the store associate. Just like you don't have to prove anything. You tap your credit card and it's good or bad, right? It works or it doesn't work. I have to, explain, I've already paid for this online. I'm coming into store to pick it up. Why, right? If I bought something and paid for it online, it should be super easy for me to go into the store, enter my phone number, enter an order number, and it prints a receipt out, and I can grab the thing off the shelf and walk out the door, right? It should be that easy.
I quit going to Target because they want you to bring in a paper receipt. And I'm like, look, I'm not carrying paper receipts around with me. This is the digital age. You've lost a great customer because you're being a ding dong with ancient rules. I mean, I know they have a refund problem, okay? Yeah, I got it. There is a big issue.
But they shouldn't push it on you. The technology is there to securely verify an online purchase right in store, and that's what we're enabling. And our challenge in the payment industry, you talk about kind of slow adopters. They're so focused on security, again, rightly so. They've got so many issues to deal with and bringing new payment options to the table and so much back end. They're not even ready to focus on this yet. And so we're laying this foundation with them to help enable that direct communication to the point of sale device directly to that in-store environment. Today it's facing the content is targeted to the merchant and the store associate, but the clear next step is having that messaging and having the capabilities there for the consumer, and having that consumer be able to walk in, tap their phone, walk out, convert 1,000 of their Amex reward points to $20 off of a purchase, have them take a promotion they got from Coke, and get it at a restaurant just as easy as they can get it at a convenience store, just as easy as they can get it at a grocery store.
So if your target is the merchant's not paying you, right? The ISO, the independent sales organization, or the acquiring entity, which is not the bank. It's just someone facilitating. I mean, there's only a couple: Wells Fargo. Who are the banks really? The ISOs. I mean, Chase is going to be considered a bank and a acquirer, correct?
Yeah, you peel back the onion on this payment industry, and it's a complicated mess, right? There's, you got Chase as a bank and as a payment processor. Bank of America is a bank, now becoming an independent payment processor as well. So the whole industry is morphing. The bottom line is it's got to be quick and easy. It's got to be seamless for both the merchant and for the consumer. And the more friction and the more challenge it is, if I walk in and try to use my Apple or my Android to make a payment, and the merchant doesn't even know how that works, that's a bad experience for both people, right? And so those things have to be ironed out, and that's our first focus, is creating better communication and awareness so that the merchants and the store associates know how to use this infrastructure better. Don't have to call and wait on hold for support. Don't have to, they can push a button on their terminal and get what they need and the answers they need much more quickly. And then we can enable the brands and the loyalty platform providers and all the rest of the players in that value chain that are driving customers to the store to have a better experience as well.
Yeah, see, I could see how you'd be very beneficial to the merchant, because 40% of all gift cards go unredeemed. I mean, that's a scam, right? That's a total scam, really. I mean, it's but if you could do the QR code, and get it down, I still got 14 cents on this, and it's not problematic. So let's say you got a Vantiv, a Thesis. By the way, there's 3.1 million merchants in the United States, and then you got 31 big ISO type acquirers, Adyen, Stripe. Let's say Adyen's listening to this, and your pitch, your commercials is between Adyen, the acquirer, not the merchant. You're not selling to each millions of merchants, right? So you go to Adyen. What does this cost Adyen, and what's the pitch to them?
It's a couple bucks per device or per merchant per month, depending on how we deploy it. Very cheap.
You said $2?
Couple bucks,
$2 per month. So any merchant can afford this.
And then again, we really encourage them not to charge the merchant, to roll it out across the board to all their merchants, because they're benefiting from the reduced call support. One of the largest processors there deploys our solution on every terminal they ship. They've seen almost a 70% reduction in inbound support calls just by proactively communicating.
$27 an inbound phone call. That's a monster savings.
Yeah, you can see why they just signed a 3-year agreement, and we'll have a couple 100,000 of their merchants online, in the next year and a half or so. So they got an immediate win from that stuff, and then they start educating the merchant about value-added services. A very small percentage of merchants sign up for gift card programs, cash advance, discount, chargeback protection, all of the things that are directly related to merchants. And then you extend it beyond that into all of the other things that merchants need, and that these service providers can help them: insurance, payroll, all kinds of other value-added services that they can bring to the table. So there's massive upside, in that revenue opportunity there. And so that first wave, the goal is to get that service and that connection to the merchants as fast as possible and across as many of those merchants as possible. And then you've got that opportunity to bring the brands in. Coke would love to have a promotion that can be delivered to Gary, that Gary can use, whether you're at a restaurant ordering a Coke, or at a grocery store, or at a convenience store. And understanding that side of the business it's unlimited.
Would this be relevant for event builders, guys that are running events, like my brother does these events with 30,000 people. And you know what the decline rate is? Like those shows he does in Vegas.
Yeah,
I think he saw declines of 23% once
yeah, yeah.
because they
Any
don't know like he can sell 40 or $40,000 and the banks get so nervous with that. I'm like, why are you nervous with that? He's running a $1 billion business, man. You should be accepting that stuff all day long.
Yeah, and to have people enroll and pay online, and then be able to securely confirm, yep, you're the one that's got picking up this ticket in store, or you've bought as a member of an event, you paid online, but you bought the T-shirt and you bought the hot dog and the Coke as well. Those are totally different vendors, and the only thing that connect them is a payment device, because all of the payment devices are connected into the same ecosystem, right? And so that internet connected device can become the ultimate connector point, but in the conduit between that merchant and that customer's journey, from getting into the venue, getting the Coke, getting the T-shirt, and getting a discount on something else that they might buy at Office Depot a month later.
So on POPcodes, when you go into Adyen, let's say Adyen calls you up this afternoon and says, okay, I've got to have that product. What is the deployment for Adyen? Adyen will have probably 1 million merchants. Like, do they do a test? How do they know it's working? What's the journey for them? And then when do you get full conversion? Because I think $2 is really, really like enticing, right?
Yeah. So Adyen, it's a perfect example, because they were, they started on the e-com side of things, and managing payments in the e-com world is a whole different world than managing payments in the in-person experience, right? In the e-com space, you've got a system administrator that knows technology, that is used to dealing with you online and via email, and a whole different experience. In the brick and mortar world, you got mom and pop merchants that are still trying to figure out how to activate Wi-Fi on a device, right? And how to get the thing set up. So that's the first thing we really focus on, is helping an Adyen reduce their cost to deploy and support the devices. And if they want to start with a pilot.
Sorry, Greg. So because mom and pop shops having to call the call center at Adyen to go, hey, what's the CVV code, or hey, it shows expiration, or I can't read the number. These are really expensive phone calls, right?
Absolutely, for both, right? For a merchant, if I'm waiting on hold for 15 minutes while a customer's standing in front of me, that's a bad experience for everybody, right? I'd rather be able to push a couple buttons, get an answer on my terminal, and be able to move on. So that's that first case. And if a company like Adyen wants to prove the value, we're literally going to say deploy it to 1,000 merchants, deploy it to 10,000 merchants. Define your KPI. How much do you want to reduce this by? And we'll create the campaigns and we'll drive the awareness to meet that goal. And if we can't meet that goal in 6 months, you can cancel the contract.
How many cancellations have you had?
We haven't had any.
You like that question, don't you? See, I did not load that question up. I just took a guess, but I had a feeling he didn't have any cancellations.
Yeah, when we guarantee 60, 80, 90% of the people are going to see the message every day that we need to deliver to them, the chances of them not acting on it is extremely low. We've helped a company that would have had to pull over 8,000 devices off the counter and replace it with a new one, because the merchant had to go through like a 10-step manual upgrade, is what it's called, to download some new software. And we said, don't pull those devices. Let us message those merchants to walk them through this process. They want to do it. They want their devices, to be on the latest, greatest software, but it's a pain in the butt. There's 10 steps. So we created a campaign that said, hey, when they came in the morning, this device needs to be upgraded. Push this button to print out the instructions, follow these instructions, and we'll confirm when you're done. And it went from 8,000 devices needed it to 4,000 in like 10 days. They were blown away, right? And then it kept going down. And then eventually it was like a handful of devices that they really, for whatever reason, that merchant wasn't going to do it. and they had to reach out to those, 50 merchants. But instead of the 8,000, right? So that one campaign alone saved them hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the pain of the merchant having to pull a device out of their counter, pack it up, send it back, get a new device, install it, that whole pain.
So I understand from some, one of the gentlemen that you just hired, which by the way, great. Like he's one of the best biz dev guys I've ever met.
And he's awesome.
Yeah, he is. I forgot how hard biz dev is. It's a thankless job. The salespeople hate the biz dev guy because he never closes anything. And I'm not sure that's his job. I think his job is to get softballs into the office and somebody else closes them. His job is to make safe point you and also identify where the soft targets are, a bit like an intelligence officer. I see you laughing, going, "Oh, that's appropriate," and he's
Absolutely.
really great.
And he's overachieving because he's finding out, how ready these processors are now and how much they need it.
Yeah.
The conversation.
Well, it's a sinking ship, right?
Oh
like
yeah.
Literally the boat. Look, guys, you need to think about it. This guy's got a cool business because Visa, MasterCard, Adyen, whoever's going to charge them 3.5% on $100. So they're going to lose $3.5. 10% to 20% of those people are going to have a phone call. That's a $27 phone call that someone has to pay. Now, maybe Adyen pays it, but at the end of the day, Adyen cannot pay $27 phone calls and make $2.5 on a sale. It's just not sustainable. We're entering a world where actually the friction needs to be removed, right, Greg? And this is part of the solution of just removing the friction. I don't know why this can't just be one ubiquitous program. Like, well, everybody's got their own little filter. How big is the company today? How many people? And are you raising money right now? I think you're going through a raise to take you to the next level now that you've got the metrics.
Yeah, so we're still really small. We were waiting for kind of the US to kind of catch up for about 5 years. And so we kept our team really small. We're still under 10 people. We've got some of the largest payment processors as clients already and more of them, onboarding. We're waiting, we're in a really nice position. My co-founder, is very successful in the oil and gas industry. I've been through this a few times, so we've been able to for the majority fund it ourselves up to this point. We're waiting for that right tipping point where we've got the inertia to get to that at least North American wide level, so that we can grow and then go into that global view, and that'll probably be Q1 Q2 next year.
Who are the competitors, Greg, to you? Does anybody else do this, or could you dominate this game if you move quick?
Yeah, I mean, some of the hardware manufacturers have some messaging capability on their systems, but it's like Morse code compared to what we can do. So
well, yours is built for purpose, right? Theirs was built as a little add-on button. That's a massive mistake. They're not going to be a software company.
Yeah, this was built from the ground up with payments in mind, the whole complexity of the network. We do some really advanced things in terms of making sure that our content is really quick. It's really instantly available. Even if the internet's down, they can still use our solution. Even if the payment gateway's down, our solution still works. So I'd say we're you never want to sit back and say we've got this. Nobody else can even come into this space. But I think we're a year and a half ahead of the competition, at least still. And in terms of install base, nobody's close to where we are in terms of the number of merchants that have our app on their counter. Now it's in a white labeled state right now, so they don't necessarily know that it's POPcodes that's driving it, but it doesn't matter. We've got that level of communication. We've got millions of interactions on our device each month, and it's growing by the thousands of merchants a month. Which again, if you're in the B2B space, to add 1,000 new B2B customers a month with 10 people is unheard of.
It is unheard of, and that's look, there's 50 plus million merchants on the planet, and no one, MasterCard and Visa, cannot handle that volume. Okay. Everybody thinks they can, they can't. No one can scale at that level. Having said that, I think if I understand your product and your business well, I think, I might actually raise some money quicker for that play, though, for the domination play, which would look like you walking into Adyen and going, hey, look, I know that you saw the video I did, and let's go do business. But if you had cash, you could actually give some cash to Adyen to go, hey, I want exclusive, roll me out, and I want you to do it ASAP. I'll put a team in place for every one of your merchants. I think once you get this type of device, because it's a physical device, into the system, it's not gonna get moved easily, and it's definitely not going to the point of sale cash register. That device is going to go away. There's not going to be, that is not a future. I'm stunned they're still having trade shows on point of sale devices, man.
Yeah, and they're becoming smarter, right? But there's 10,000 different point of sale devices around the world, and integrating directly into the point of sale. First of all, you don't want your payment data. I was a privacy officer at Macy's as well. You do not want your payment data to go through your point of sale system. The least amount of credit card data going into your ecosystem, the better, right? Because that's a massive risk. So if you can separate, a payment authorization and getting, a confirmation that this card is good and you will get your money from your, what's the cost of my product and who's my customer and all the rest of the stuff that the point of sale has, and how many, boxes of Cheese Whiz I have on the shelf or whatever. I mean, that's a big thing for merchants to be able to do, right off the bat. But then, yeah, I mean, the number of smart devices that are out there is growing rapidly, and the opportunity to build that, ad network and to bring those value added solutions. That's unquestionably the next, major leap. A couple years ago, a lot of the VCs that we talked to, didn't really understand what was coming in payments. Payments is such a unique space, that when we would talk about this, they'd be like, well, isn't everybody going to be, paying each other through the phone? And I'm like, if you're a merchant, you don't want your waiter to be handing their phone to a customer to make a payment, right? Who knows, what that phone's going to look like? Who knows what's going to pop up on the phone, when they're doing it, right? So the consumer is going to have phones, but the merchant's going to need to have a smart device.
Right. Yeah, a secure device. Yeah, a secure device. Yeah.
Much more secure, centrally managed, much more robust, made to be, dropped on the floor, made to be, in that real world environment. But always connected onto the internet so that it's got the ability to get software updates, to get all the key things that have created that secure and reliable payment infrastructure.
So we'll wrap up here in a couple of seconds, but you said something that I didn't digest. Most people don't know that, because the payment side, they're a consumer, it's pretty ubiquitous. They don't know what goes on behind the scenes unless there's a delay at the cash register.
Right.
Which I was at Nordstrom's just the other day. That's why I hate going to stores. I got to wait in line now to pay. That's crazy. But I didn't think about the application if an Adyen went out. Like if they had an outage, maybe explain the value of you being able to look at, the merchant being able to go, oh, Adyen's down right now. That's why it's declining. It has nothing to do with the customer. One, educate the audience on there are outages. What is the average outage of like maybe a Vantiv, WorldPay, or an Adyen? I'm sure it's 1 or 2%.
Yeah, I mean, it happens a couple times a year. Usually it's for, less than an hour. But when it's bigger, and there's been a few examples, Square was one, most recently. There was one in Canada here that was almost a full day. Square was a full day. The CEO got fired afterwards. When the lights go out, everybody knows the lights are out. Everybody knows that it's the power company's problem. Somebody might want to have to, check a circuit, switch in the back. But in general, everybody's on the same page instantly. It's somebody else's problem. We'll get through this. when a payment doesn't get accepted at the point of sale, the first thing that happens is the finger gets pointed at the customer. Your card is bad. You don't have this. You're not, which is a horrible thing to do as a merchant, right? And an uncomfortable situation for the store associate even, right? And super uncomfortable for the consumer.
Super.
Right? And then they try another card and the same thing, happens. And they look at their phone, they're like, my Wi-Fi's up, the power's on. What's going on? Right? And they try something else and they maybe reboot the terminal, they try a few things. And then, it could literally be hours later for them to figure out that some central server, some payment processor that they don't even know the name of, that's integral in that whole value chain between a card being, accepted and the approval going back to that merchant isn't working. And it's extremely difficult for them to figure that out. What we do is we'll send in real time a message to the terminal that says, don't worry, Visa is having an issue right now. If your customer has, a different card type, you can ask for that, or you can take it offline, which allows you to hold the transaction to clear later, right? And we'll tell you when it's clear, but right now, this is what you should do. And to send that message to the merchant as quickly as possible improves the experience for everybody involved.
Yeah.
It dramatically reduces the calls, because again, as soon as they figure out it's a payment, it's not in their own store, they pick up the phone and they wait on hold. And the call volume for these service providers goes through the roof. They have hundreds or thousands of merchants on hold, and they can't, so you got, again, a merchant angry, a customer in front of them, all of that's the worst case. So their call volume goes up. The merchants losing sales because they didn't know they could switch to offline. Maybe even the store associate didn't even know how to switch to offline mode, right? So we help that merchant, keep those transactions, and we resolve that issue with the consumer and not make that consumer feel bad that, it's probably you, right? It's probably your card, which is the first thing they hear, which is super frustrating as a customer when your card's good.
Yeah, that would be the time when you offer a discount to the merchant, to the consumer, and apologize. I've never heard that apology, right? Hey, look, sorry, it took 20 minutes. Here's 20% discount on your next $10,000 purchase.
Exactly. Yeah, and all you have to do is, come in here and tap your phone, and that discount will be waiting for you.
Yeah. Because I think people don't, like, one of the things I would go pull if I were you is the abandonment rate. When you get a card decline, I'm sure you have this data online, 92% chance that you will never, ever go back to that merchant. That is lethal to a merchant.
Yeah.
It may not be lethal to WorldPay, but I would actually suggest it's also lethal to the middlemen. You do not want that happening. You want your merchants robust, and you want the customers going to a bunch of different places, not one or two.
Yeah. Yeah. And what if you do, if you're a restaurant, they've already eaten, right? Are you going to say, stay here, don't leave until I can process your payment? Nobody has cash anymore, especially with the way restaurant costs are going up and all the rest of that. I mean, it's a couple $100 bill. Are you going to, whip out a couple $100, and ask everybody to pay, their money? They're going to leave, right?
And they'll never come back. They will never come back. It's a bad experience. Yeah.
So the faster you can message that merchant, the better, right? And the same thing, whether it's a, alert to say that there's an increase of fraud in the neighborhood. Here's something that you need to be aware of. Here's, don't accept, this kind of card, or be aware that, people are trying to steal products that have been purchased online for in-store pickup or something like that. Those kinds of messaging are really, critical for the merchant. And there's no way literally for those service providers to reach that customer today.
Yeah, you got a really cool business. I'm really glad we did this, because it gives me a better understanding of what you're doing and the problem you're solving. Gregg, where would people find you if they want to reach out? LinkedIn, Twitter, email address, whatever.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm literally the only Gregg Aamoth, Gregg Aamoth in North America, which is kind of weird. But that's where I am. POPcodes is easy to remember.
That's
POPcodes.com. Yeah, we're out there, and we'd love to share our ideas and challenges, and for your audience, I'm always open to support anybody that's getting ready to grow, start or grow a business. If I can help, we'd be glad to help.
Yeah, that's awesome. Guys, if you're a merchant or you're a ISO or a processor and you think this is an intriguing conversation, I would reach out to Gregg or Andy Turney at POPcodes. Andy's the biz dev guy we were talking about. Either one will most certainly respond to you. I mean, it's $2 a unit, right? Like you sell a little device like this, $2. A restaurant that has maybe 100 tables, how many of those units do you need? 4?
Yeah, so ours is just software that goes onto their existing terminal, so they probably already have it.
Oh my God, it's not even
device, and we're just a piece of software that goes on it, right? So a large restaurant might have 5 or 6 terminals already, and the app just goes on every one of them.
Yeah, so it's $10. So an ISO looks at this and go, "What it cost me $10 for this restaurant?" They'll make that back on the first transaction. Hell, they'll just make that in their service fees every month, right? They probably are going to add $2 to it. I mean,
yeah,
they're so stingy. I would tell them to add $2. It's not going to kill the deal, but
yeah, and yeah, like you said, the first call that they avoid, they've paid for a year of our services, right? I mean, that's the big win, right? And then they can sell them on something else and do even more.
Yeah. This is a great story, Gregg. I really appreciate you taking the time to sharing it with me. It's been educational for me. Hopefully, the people that are watching this are looking at, I mean, payments is a 50-year-old business, okay? Gregg's not 12 years old. Gregg saw an opportunity, sees a problem that's getting worse and worse and worse. Here's a very good example where you do not have to go into a brand new industry and learn everything brand new. Here's an industry that has problems, and he's fixing what I call it's a plumbing problem in finance. It's not really a money problem. It's a plumbing problem. Too many people with their beak into the it's a vampire event, right? The host is just giving away too much blood. But I love your ideas and love the team you're building. You got a great eye for talent, and just want to thank you very much for spending an hour with us.
Oh man, Gary, I appreciate your time as well, and hope people have some ideas coming from it.
Yeah, and you're going to be at Money 2020, October the 22nd through 25th. So Las Vegas, anybody wants to be in Vegas during then, Gregg and his team are out there.
We'll be there.
All right, Gregg, thanks so much, buddy. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care, Gary.